Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make tech house like Max Chapman. As usual, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets. All of that from this video is available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get started. So, first sound we got going on here, we're at 126 BPM. The first sound is this little bloop, which sounds like this. So this is meant to just kind of be like an extra sort of, not necessarily just percussive element. Like there's a lot, this track and this style is mostly percussion. That's kind of how it works. It's like, the percussion and the bass line are taking up 90% of the mix. And that's how it's supposed to be. But you still want to have little things here and there that come in that could be melodic or at least have a note to them. So that's the idea with this one. It stands out a lot when you just hear that little every bar. So yeah, that's just in there playing very sparse notes. The key with this is you really just want it to play one or two notes every bar, like not a whole lot happening, but again, it's just going to add a lot just by being there in the sparse quantities that it is there. Now, for the sound with this one, so it's just this one little one shot. I'll play you the original sound. So it's just like this kind of like, sort of like synth percussion type of sound. And what I've done here is I brought it into a simpler, and then I'm using a low pass filter on it, and we're putting an envelope on the filter. So here's without the low pass, and then with it. Again, without it, and then with it. So you can hear, it's just kind of like creating this more plucky sound. And making it have a little bit less impact also. Like it makes it so it's more tight and it fits better into the track versus if I turn off the filter. You can hear it kind of like, not like it stands out, but it doesn't fit into the groove that's there already as well. That's something that's really important to keep in mind, is sort of building this groove with like this really powerful percussion and hi-hats. And making sure everything is fitting into that rather than like kind of taking away from it. For effects on this one, you can see I've just got a bit of chorus and some reverb. So those just give the sound a bit of space, make it feel a bit wider. And then we just have some drum bus to beef it up a little bit, make it a bit more powerful. And then finally, I just have a high pass filter. And that's it for the bloop. After that, we have the kick. So this is just your standard sort of like fat tech house kick. I made this one here. And yeah, it's just like this big booming like deep, fat, low end presence like this. And you'll notice it's not even so much about getting like a really clicky kick. It's really just about having like this big, fat, booming low end like this. And then having some nice, just having a little bit still in the mid-range and the high end, but it's really about getting that fat, deep, low end. And then for processing on that, I just got a little bit of saturation. Here's without that. And then with it, so pretty subtle. And yeah, that's it for the kick. From there we have the bass, which sounds like this. So here's the bass line. We're in the key of A. That's the key I've got the kick tuned to. So I've got, mostly this is just playing A, and then it's just playing this little E down here and a G. So those notes are just in the A minor scale, because if we put this up, you can see it's actually 7 notes up from the root note. So that would make it the 5th. So the E is just the 5th, and then this G is just a minor 7th. So I'm taking notes out of the A minor scale to add like some extra little bouncy notes. And really, you kind of could just get away with this just being A too. Like, that's the idea. It's like mostly meant to just be about the groove more than it is the notes. But then we're just kind of peppering in these 2 different notes here and there just to make things a little bit more exciting. For the sound with this one, it's made with operators. So what this one is it's just a simple FM pluck made using 3 sine waves. You can see I've got the envelopes set like that. I've got the second one up an octave, and then what's happening here is those are going into a low pass filter. So here's without that. And with it, you can hear it's really subtle, but this just kind of solidifies that like pluck. And yeah, so I've just got that set like that with that envelope. Then we just have a bit of drum bus to fatten the bass up a bit. Makes it a bit punchier too. Here's without it. And then with it, so you can really hear the difference actually with that one. And then finally, we just have this EQ8 here, which is cutting a little bit of room for the kick and boosting the lows. And then I have the kick and the bass in a group. So with this style of tech house, I'm sure you guys have seen this in my videos before, but it's all about the grouping with your different like sets of sounds. Like here I have the kick and the bass, so that would be the low end. Here we have just the percussion sounds. Here we have just the hi-hats. And the reason for this is because the track is just going to sound a lot better. And it's just really the best way to get your track to sound really cohesive and really tight by taking all your stuff and putting it in groups like this and processing it as one. And it's really simple. It's just basically because of the fact that if you think about it, it's like they're all going through the same effect. So because you're adding that exact same effect to everything, and usually because they're going through the same effect, they're kind of like interacting in an interesting way through that effect, it's going to make them sound closer together just because of the fact that they're getting the same effect. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Like, if I turn off all the group processing here, again, like, it may seem redundant to see this a lot, but this is just the way you do it. This is how you make your sound this big. Here is without any of that group processing. So yeah, it's still, effectively, it is still the track, but it's not nearly as powerful and as full sounding and as professional as this is when we put all the group processing back on. You can hear it just makes it sound so much more full, and it really stands out now. And it's the kind of thing also where, like, without the group processing, it might sound okay when you're just listening to it on your own, but try and put this project file up against a reference track and turn off the group processing, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, it's not, there's a big difference between what just kind of sounds good if you're just kind of like messing around, and what's really going to sound like a professional track. And this is the stuff that's going to make the difference in terms of making it sound like a professional track. So here I just have a bit of saturation, really simple, but again, without it. And then with it. So yeah, like, nothing too crazy, just a little bit of saturation goes a long way to glue the low end together. And yeah, then after that we have the percussion. So you can hear there's a lot of groove happening in this percussion. It's basically like 4 different main layers. We have this rim shot here, these extra percussions in this drum rack here, these 2 claps, which are really just one, they just make up the one clap that you're hearing, and then this little noise stab. So with the rim shot, this is just like this little, kind of like hit, adding a few little extra accents into the groove. Really not too crazy, but just doing a quick little. And yeah, then after that, we have this drum rack with these percussions. So what these are is it's these 4 different percussion sounds that I brought in here, and then I pitched them all up an octave. You can see if you look at the transpose on all of these, it's up plus 12. And this is a really easy way to do this. All you have to do to get your whole drum rack to be transposed up is, let's say this is at 0. And like I want to put everything up to plus 10. So I just set this one to plus 10. And then you can right click and there's this copy value to siblings. And now they'll all be the same pitch. And so I'll put these back up to plus 12. But yeah, so I've got those all up an octave just to kind of make them a bit more like kind of clicky and faster and less like taking up space in the mix, but just creating a lot of groove. Because if you listen to the style of tech house, Max Chapman's tracks, and a lot of these different producers, they have these very skippy, fast, like, percussions happening over top of everything. There's a shaker and hi-hats doing that, but there's definitely also, like, just these constant percussions adding a lot of click and, like, hard-hitting stuff in there. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, if I turn this stuff off, know, this does sound like actually some other tech house tracks, but to really get that like clicky kind of groove, you guys know what I'm talking about if you've heard these tracks. You just have to get some kind of high percussion like this and put it in a group. And just kind of have it going constantly. And it's also like how it fits off of the groove. Like if you look at this here, for example, how this goes. That's like very intentional to fit best with what is going on with all the other percussion. And then the next layer here would be the claps. So we just have these two claps. It's this one, which you can hear has more of like that like kind of soft part to it. And this one, which is more of the attack. And with the soft one, you'll notice that I've dragged it back a little bit. So the soft one actually starts a little bit before the main clap, as you can see. That's so you get that kind of like thing at the start. And yeah, so we're just kind of layering these together just because like one of these has a very nice punch to it, but it doesn't have the soft thing. And this one has that nice softness to it, but it doesn't really have the punch. So you put them together. And there you go, it's the best of both worlds. And then after that, we have the little noise stab. So this is just a little bit of white noise inside of Operator. Literally, it's just white noise. I've got a little bit of attack on it, and then it's being high pass. That's it, but this just creates some cool percussion. I've noticed Max Chapman uses these a lot. And it's a cool way to add some groove, because you get that like psh, psh, at the end of every 2 bars. It's very catchy. And then on the group of all that percussion, we just have a bit of drum bus and a high pass filter. So here's without it. And then with it. So the drum bus, you know, just making it a lot fatter and more full, kind of bringing out the levels of everything as well, making them more even so it all fits evenly in the mix. And then the high pass filter is just there cutting out the lows to make sure it doesn't clash with the low end, like the kick and the bass. And then next up we have the hi-hats. So these are also 4 layers actually. What this is, so we start with this hi-hat 1 and this shaker. These two are kind of working together. So what's happening here is we have, these are both doing the same thing. If you listen, just going. But the thing is, this kind of goes back to what I was saying with that percussion before. A lot of times on these tracks, it has this very rigid, like full sounding happening, and the way you get that is by combining a shaker loop where you can hear like the loop has a certain live aspect to it that we can't really get elsewhere, but then this programmed hi-hat, you know, just going has an intensity to it that you can't get from the loops. So if you put them together, you get the live feel of the loop with the intensity of the program percussion. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Like, here's with just the shaker in the whole mix. And then with the hi-hat. So having that is going to make a big difference. And yeah, it's important to layer these together if you really want to get the kind of sound like you hear in these tracks. Then after that, we have these hi-hats down here. So these are just this one. So this is just our main hi-hat. You know, it's just this big fat hi-hat playing on the upbeats. You can see I just have it being high pass to cut out the lows. And then we have this little hi-hat, which just plays a few little extra sort of here and there hits to add a bit more. You can hear that adds like a very subtle little extra bit of groove to the overall beat. And then I have the hi-hats in a group together. So with this one, it's pretty much that same kind of processing like you would imagine. I've got some drum bus to fatten them up and make them hit more, and then an EQ8 cutting out the lows and boosting the highs. But I also have this high pass filter before the drum bus. And the reason for this is because a lot of times these samples can have a bit of low end in them, and what's going to happen is when you send that into the drum bus, even if you're not trying to hear that low end, the low end is going to get a lot louder even sometimes than the main hi-hat. Like, you'll get this, like, thing happening in the low end that's just really nasty. And it's just because that's kind of coming out of those samples and then being boosted by the drum bus. So if we cut that before the drum bus, it won't have that same problem. We're essentially just creating more headroom so that we can drum bus the high end stronger and not have those lows messing everything up. So it's just a simple way to clean it up, and I'll show you the difference. Here's without the high pass before. Here there's like that thing that keeps happening. That's what I'm talking about with the low end, but then we turn it on. And it's a lot cleaner. Now it still has the punch. You still do get a, like when it's hitting. But it doesn't have that like nasty low end being distorted and causing a mess. And yeah, so that is me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI presets. Everything from this video is available right at the top of the description. This is a great way to support me. If you guys want to help me out, if you're enjoying these videos, I don't make a whole lot off of the videos. But with these sample packs and different stuff like this, I'm able to make a living off of this and, you know, keep making these videos to keep you guys entertained while we're all stuck in the house right now. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.